Trump also announced a new trade deal with the UK that will reopen British markets for American companies. All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these two.
I mean, Sarah was...
Finally, NT confirms big bombshells that we all kind of knew. Meghan yachting ways, Meghan's client.
Jeffrey Epstein, we know that he was a very, very clever man, and he didn't like to show himself a lot. In fact, there are very far and few pictures taken of him.
Breaking news from the palace walls. And what I'm about to tell you isn't coming from tabloids or anonymous sources. This is coming from one of the most mainstream, carefully controlled entertainment platforms in America, Saturday Night Live. And when SNL's Colin Jost decides to go there, to shine a light on something the media has been desperately trying to keep buried, you know the story has reached a tipping point. A shocking new twist has erupted in the Meghan Markle saga, and this time it involves someone from the entertainment establishment itself. Colin Jost, comedian, SNL Weekend Update anchor, married to Scarlett Johansson, has allegedly exposed what insiders are calling Meghan's yacht secrets. Can you imagine this? We're not talking about fringe internet conspiracy theorists anymore. We're talking about mainstream entertainment figures openly discussing aspects of Meghan's past that her PR machine has spent years and millions of dollars trying to suppress. Reports are exploding online claiming that Jost has brought to light details about Meghan's pre-royal years that she desperately hoped would stay buried. Details about luxury yachts in the Mediterranean. Details about wealthy men and exclusive parties. Details about a lifestyle that doesn't quite match the struggling actress narrative she sold to the world. What began as a casual conversation on a podcast has now turned into one of Meghan's worst PR nightmares. Because once someone with Colin Jost's platform starts asking questions, once mainstream comedy starts treating these rumors as legitimate topics for discussion, the protective wall around Meghan's past begins to crumble. And behind that wall, according to sources, are secrets that would completely rewrite how we understand Meghan's rise from cable TV actress to duchess. Secrets about who is funding her international travel. Secrets about what she was actually doing on those yachts. Secrets about the network that positioned her to meet a prince. New rumors are surfacing. Old photographs are being re-examined. Explosive commentary from people who were actually there, people who've stayed silent for years, is suddenly emerging as the protective barrier of celebrity silence starts to crack. Tonight, we're going to examine exactly what Colin Jost said that has the Sussex PR team in panic mode. We're going to look at the yacht photos that Meghan tried to scrub from the internet. We're going to trace the money trail that funded her glamorous lifestyle before Harry. And we're going to hear from insiders who witnessed firsthand what was really happening on those Mediterranean yachts. Because here's what makes this different from previous scandals. This isn't about birth certificates or timelines or protocol violations. This is about Meghan's character, about who she was and what she was willing to do before royal life sanitized her image. This is about whether the woman who married a prince and positioned herself as a feminist icon and champion of women's empowerment was, in fact, something very different in the years before she needed to rebrand herself. So before we dive into the yacht circuit, before we examine the photos Meghan doesn't want you to see, before we hear from people who were actually there, I need you to ask yourself, if Meghan's past was as innocent as she claims, why has she worked so hard to erase all evidence of it? Because by the end of this investigation, you're going to understand why Colin Jost's comments represent her worst nightmare. Not because he said anything definitively provable, but because he made it acceptable for mainstream figures to discuss what everyone in Hollywood apparently already knew but wouldn't say publicly. The protective silence has been broken. And once that happens, there's no putting it back. Let's begin where Colin Jost began, with a comment that seemed casual but hit like a bomb for anyone who understands what he was really referencing. Colin Jost was appearing on a podcast, one of those long-form interview shows where celebrities let their guard down and have actual conversations rather than delivering carefully rehearsed talking points. The host was discussing public figures who've successfully rebranded themselves, and Meghan Markle's name came up as an example of someone who transformed her image from actress to duchess to humanitarian advocate. And that's when Jost said something that made everyone who understood the reference freeze. he didn't explicitly detail Meghan's yacht past. He's too smart for that, too legally aware of what he can and can't say without proof. But he made a comment about yachting in a tone that made it absolutely clear what he meant. For those who don't know, yachting is entertainment industry code. It's what insiders call the practice of beautiful women, models, actresses, Instagram influencers, being paid to attend parties on wealthy men's yachts, ostensibly as guests, but actually as hired entertainment and companionship. Can you imagine how this works? A billionaire is throwing a party on his mega yacht in the Mediterranean. He wants beautiful women there to make the party look more glamorous, to entertain his wealthy male guests, to create the aesthetic of a luxurious, exclusive event. So someone, usually a middleman, a facilitator, someone like Marcus Anderson at Soho House, recruits beautiful women and pays them to attend. Sometimes it's just appearance fees. Sometimes it's more than that. But it's always transactional, always about providing a service to wealthy men in exchange for money and access. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is a well-documented aspect of how the ultra-wealthy operate. There are entire agencies that specialize in recruiting women for yacht parties. There are middlemen who've built careers on connecting ambitious women with rich men. And when Colin Jost referenced yachting in connection with Meghan, everyone in entertainment knew exactly what he meant. The podcast erupted with uncomfortable laughter. The kind of laughter that says, "Oh my God, did he really just go there?" The kind that acknowledges something true that nobody is supposed to say out loud. And within hours, the clip was viral. Not on mainstream news, obviously. They can't touch this story without more concrete proof. But across social media, on forums, on commentary channels, everyone was discussing what Jost had just implied. Because here's what makes his comment so devastating. Colin Jost has no reason to lie. He's not some tabloid journalist or internet conspiracy theorist. He's a mainstream entertainment figure with everything to lose by making false accusations about a duchess. So when he references Meghan's yacht past, even indirectly, it carries weight that anonymous sources or grainy photos never could. It suggests that this is common knowledge in entertainment circles. That people who work in Hollywood know things about Meghan that the public wasn't supposed to learn. Sources say the Sussex PR team went into damage control mode immediately. Calls were made to the podcast producers about editing the comment out. Legal letters were allegedly drafted threatening action if the implication was repeated. Friendly journalists were activated to write pieces dismissing yacht rumors as racist conspiracy theories. But here's the problem. You can't unsay what's been said. You can't make people unhear what they heard. And you can't stop the internet from discussing what a mainstream figure has just publicly referenced. Can you imagine being in Meghan's position? For years, she's managed to keep her yacht past out of mainstream discussion. Sure, there were photos online, rumors on forums, whispers among people who knew. But major media outlets wouldn't touch the story without concrete proof, and entertainment figures with platforms stayed silent. Until Colin Jost didn't. Let me ask you, if the yacht rumors were completely false, why would Colin Jost risk his reputation and potential legal consequences by referencing them? Why would he make a comment that could get him sued if it were baseless? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because we're about to look at the photographic evidence that Meghan has been desperately trying to scrub from the internet for years. When we come back, we're examining the yacht photos. The timeline of Meghan's Mediterranean travels. The wealthy men she was photographed with. And the financial impossibility of affording that lifestyle on an actress's salary. This is where the circumstantial evidence becomes impossible to ignore. Stay with us. Before we go any further, I need to establish something. We're going to be very careful about what we claim versus what we can actually prove. Because the truth is, there's no definitive smoking gun that says Meghan Markle was paid to attend yacht parties. But what we do have is a pattern of photographic evidence, timeline analysis, and financial impossibility that, when combined, paints a very clear picture. Let's start with the most famous photo, Croatia, 2016. Meghan on a luxury yacht with a group of people that included some very wealthy, powerful men. She's not dating any of them publicly. She's not working with them professionally in any obvious capacity. She's just there. Can you imagine how that photo looked to people who understand the yacht circuit? Because to them, It wasn't a casual vacation snap. It was a confirmation of something they already suspected about how Meghan had been funding her pre-royal lifestyle. But Croatia wasn't the only yacht appearance. Investigators who've compiled Meghan's public social media posts from before she met Harry found multiple yacht references. Photos taken on different yachts in different locations across multiple years. The Mediterranean, the Caribbean, exclusive marinas where mega yachts dock during high season. Meghan appearing glamorous, designer-dressed, perfectly made up, surrounded by wealth that vastly exceeded anything she could have afforded on her suit's salary. Now, Meghan supporters would say, so what? She had wealthy friends. She went on vacation. That doesn't prove anything. And they're right. It doesn't prove anything definitively. But let's look at the financial reality of what these photos represent. Suits was a cable TV show. Meghan was a supporting actress. Her salary has been estimated at around $50,000 per episode, which sounds impressive until you factor in taxes, agent fees, and basic living expenses in Toronto, where the show filmed. Even in a good year with a full season order, Meghan was probably netting around $250,000 to $300,000 after all deductions.
Comfortable, yes.
But not international luxury, yacht circuit money. Yet her Instagram from those years showed her traveling constantly. Milan Fashion Week, London social events, Mediterranean yacht parties, Caribbean getaways. Always dressed in designer clothes. Always in exclusive locations. Always surrounded by wealth. Can you imagine the actual cost of maintaining that lifestyle? Let's be conservative in our estimates. International flights, business class to Europe and back multiple times per year, at least $30,000 annually. Designer wardrobe. The outfits Meghan wore in these photos weren't fast fashion. We're talking designer pieces that individually cost thousands of dollars. Accommodation. When she wasn't on yachts, she was staying at luxury hotels in expensive cities during their most expensive seasons. Events. Access to exclusive parties, fashion weeks, charity galas, many of which require donations or ticket purchases costing tens of thousands. Beauty and styling. Hair, makeup, personal training, maintaining the physical appearance required to move in these circles. Easily another $50,000 per year. A conservative estimate puts her lifestyle costs at $150,000 to $200,000 per year beyond basic living expenses, which means she would need to be earning $450,000 to $500,000 per year after taxes just to break even. There's no way her suit's salary covered that, which means someone else was funding her lifestyle. Someone was paying for her to maintain the image, the wardrobe, the international travel that kept her in proximity to wealthy, powerful men. And that's where the yacht photos become significant. Because when you see Meghan on these yachts, when you trace the timeline of her appearances at exclusive events she couldn't have afforded to attend on her own, when you notice she's consistently in proximity to wealthy men who could fund that lifestyle, a pattern emerges. Now, let's talk about what happened to these photos. Because this is where Meghan's cleanup operation becomes obvious. After she started dating Harry, Meghan's Instagram account was scrubbed. Not just deactivated, cleaned of specific photos before it was shut down. Internet sleuths who'd followed her before noticed that certain photos vanished. The yacht photos. The photos with wealthy men who weren't Harry. The photos that showed her in contexts that didn't match the self-made actress narrative. Can you imagine the coordination that requires? Going through years of social media, identifying which photos create problems for your new royal image, removing them strategically before shutting down the account entirely so no one can access the archive. That's not someone casually cleaning up their social media before a major life change. That's someone executing a strategic image cleanup operation because certain photos reveal things you don't want the world connecting. But the internet never forgets. People who'd followed Meghan before Harry had downloaded photos. Websites had archived her pages. Screenshots existed. And slowly, as Meghan's profile grew, people started sharing what they'd saved. The Croatia photo was the most famous, but there were others. Meghan on different yachts with different groups of wealthy people. Meghan at exclusive events in Europe that happened during times when Suits was on hiatus and she theoretically had no income. Each photo individually, means nothing definitive. But collectively, they tell a story about a woman who is very strategically positioning herself in wealthy circles, funded by sources she's never explained, moving through a world that most struggling actresses never access. Let me ask you, if you were an actress on a cable TV show, how would you afford multiple international trips per year to attend exclusive parties on luxury yachts? How would you explain that lifestyle if asked directly?
Comment below.
Because we're about to hear from people who were actually there, people who witnessed what Meghan was doing on these yachts, and are finally willing to talk about it now that Colin Jost has broken the silence. When we come back, we're examining insider testimony, the yacht party circuit, what actually happens on these boats, and why Meghan's participation in this world is so damaging to the image she's carefully constructed. Stay with us. Now we need to understand what actually happens on the international yacht circuit. Because until you understand how this world operates, you can't fully grasp what Meghan's participation in it means. The yacht circuit is where the ultra-wealthy gather during specific seasons. Mediterranean summer, Caribbean winter, Monaco Grand Prix, Cannes Film Festival. These aren't just random vacation spots. They're strategic locations where billionaires dock their mega yachts and throw parties that most people will never even know exist. Can you imagine the level of wealth we're talking about? These aren't millionaires. These are billionaires. Hedge fund managers, tech moguls, oil barons, Russian oligarchs before international sanctions, Middle Eastern princes, people whose wealth is so vast they measure it in how many countries' GDPs they could buy. And when these men throw parties on their yachts, they want specific aesthetics. They want beautiful people. They want models and actresses who make the party look glamorous. They want the kind of women who will look stunning in photos, who will entertain their wealthy male guests, who understand discretion and don't talk about what they see and hear. So they hire them. Not directly, usually. There are middlemen who handle the recruitment, modeling agencies that officially represent the women but actually place them on yachts, Soho House connections that facilitate introductions. People like Marcus Anderson, who specialize in making sure the right beautiful people end up in proximity to the right wealthy people. The women are paid appearance fees. Sometimes $10,000 to $20,000 just to attend a party. Sometimes more for longer stays or if additional services are expected. It's all very transactional, very strategic, and very quiet. Nobody talks about it publicly because doing so would destroy the illusion. The billionaires want to believe these women are there because they're charmed by them, not because they're being paid. The women want to maintain the fiction that they're genuine guests, not hired entertainment. And the middlemen who facilitate it all want to maintain their reputations as social connectors, not as essentially high-end pimps. But people who work in this world know exactly what's happening. Yacht crew members, other guests, photographers, and event staff. They see the same women appearing at different parties on different yachts with different wealthy men, always looking stunning, always being compensated somehow, even though no one talks about money directly. Can you imagine being one of those crew members? Watching this performance happen week after week, party after party, knowing that everyone is pretending something that isn't real? Several former yacht crew members have spoken anonymously to journalists over the years about this circuit. They describe seeing the same actresses and models repeatedly. They describe wealthy men requesting specific types of women. They describe the middlemen who arrange everything and ensure discretion. And multiple sources have mentioned seeing Meghan Markle during her pre-Harry years. Not once or twice, but multiple times across multiple years on different yachts. One former crew member told an investigative journalist, she was well known in that circuit. Always well-dressed, always professional, always maintaining the image. But everyone understood why she was there. She wasn't someone's girlfriend. She wasn't working on a project with anyone. She was there because someone paid for her to be there. Another source described Meghan as being strategic about cultivating relationships with wealthy men who could help her career or fund her lifestyle. She understood the game better than most. She knew how to position herself, how to be charming without being too available, how to create the impression that she was valuable enough to invest in. A third source, someone who worked in yacht party coordination, said, Meghan was on a trajectory toward landing someone significant. That was always the goal with women in that circuit. Meet the right man, secure the relationship, upgrade your life. Most of them aimed for wealthy businessmen. Meghan landed a prince. From that world's perspective, she won the game. Now, none of these sources have provided documentary evidence that would hold up in court. They haven't shown payment records or contracts or photographs that definitively prove Meghan was compensated for attending yacht parties. But their testimony is consistent across multiple independent sources who don't know each other. They all describe the same pattern. Meghan was a regular presence on the yacht circuit. She was clearly being funded by someone to maintain her lifestyle and appearances, and everyone in that world understood what was actually happening even if nobody discussed it openly. Can you imagine how damaging this testimony is to Meghan's carefully constructed image? The feminist icon who champions women's empowerment was allegedly participating in a system where women are quite literally commodified and traded for access to wealthy men. The humanitarian advocate who talks about dignity and respect was allegedly part of a circuit where women's value is measured by their appearance and their willingness to entertain wealthy men. The Duchess who married for love allegedly came from a world where relationships are fundamentally transactional and women strategically position themselves near wealthy men as a career advancement strategy. This is why Colin Jost's comment was so explosive, because it made it acceptable for mainstream figures to reference something that insiders have always known but wouldn't say publicly. It cracked open the protective silence that's kept Meghan's yacht past out of major media discussion. Let me ask you, if these multiple independent sources are all lying or mistaken about seeing Meghan repeatedly on the yacht circuit, what would be their motivation? They're not being paid for their testimony. They're risking potential legal action. Why would they consistently tell the same story if it weren't true? Drop your thoughts below, because we're about to look at the most damaging aspect of all this, the financial paper trail that shows exactly who is funding Meghan's pre-royal lifestyle. When we come back, we're following the money, the Soho House connections, the Marcus Anderson relationship, the network that funded an actress's transformation into someone who could plausibly marry a prince. This is where speculation becomes documented fact. Stay with us. Here's where we move from photographic evidence and insider testimony to something more concrete: financial impossibility. Because regardless of what you believe about the yacht circuit, regardless of whether you think the photos prove anything, there's one question that demands an answer. How did Meghan afford her pre-royal lifestyle? Let's reconstruct her financial reality from 2011 to 2016, the years between when Suits started and when she met Harry. Her Suits salary has been estimated at $50,000 per episode. In a good season with 16 episodes, that's $800,000 before deductions. After taxes, agent fees, typically 10 to 15%, manager fees, another 10 to 15%, and other professional expenses, she probably netted around $450,000 to $500,000 in her best years. That's good money. Comfortable money. Buy a nice condo and take regular vacations money. But it's not international luxury lifestyle money. And yet that's exactly the lifestyle Meghan was living. Can you imagine trying to explain these expenses on an actress's salary? Her Toronto apartment, a luxury two-bedroom in a desirable neighborhood, estimated at $5,000 to $7,000 per month. International travel, multiple trips per year to London, Europe, the Caribbean. Even flying economy, that's $20,000 to $30,000 annually just on airfare. Designer wardrobe. Meghan was photographed in Givenchy, Roland Mouret, Burberry. Individual pieces costing $2,000 to $5,000. Her wardrobe turnover suggests $50,000 plus annually in clothing purchases. Luxury hotels. When she traveled, she stayed at high-end properties. $500 to $1,000 per night adds up quickly across multiple trips. Beauty and styling. Professional hair, makeup, personal training, skincare to maintain her appearance. Easily $30,000 to $40,000 per year. Soho House memberships in multiple cities. These aren't cheap. $3,000 to $5,000 per location per year. Event attendance. Charity galas, fashion weeks, exclusive parties often require ticket purchases or donations. Add it all up, and Meghan's lifestyle expenses alone were probably $200,000 to $250,000 per year beyond basic living costs, which means she needed to be clearing $650,000 to $750,000 after taxes just to break even. But her suit's salary couldn't possibly have covered that, especially in the early seasons when she was making less, or during hiatus periods when she had no income. So, where was the money coming from? This is where Marcus Anderson and Soho House connections become crucial, because multiple sources confirm that Meghan's Soho House memberships were comped, fully paid for by someone else, for years. That alone is worth $15,000 to $20,000 annually across multiple city locations. Someone was investing that money in ensuring Meghan had access to these exclusive spaces. Then there's the travel. Sources familiar with Soho House's VIP services confirm that certain members receive complimentary or heavily discounted travel to Soho House properties and events. Meghan appears to have benefited from this program extensively. But even with comped memberships and discounted travel, someone still had to be funding the designer wardrobe, the luxury accommodations, the lifestyle maintenance that kept her looking like she belonged in these exclusive circles. Can you imagine the level of financial backing required? We're talking about someone investing $100,000 to $150,000 per year in Meghan's image and access, money that had to be coming from somewhere if it wasn't coming from her acting salary. Investigators have traced some of this funding back to shell companies and corporate accounts connected to Soho House and its network of wealthy members. The exact flow of money is deliberately obscured, but the pattern is clear. Meghan was being financially supported by the network that Marcus Anderson facilitated. Why would wealthy men invest in funding an actress's lifestyle? Because that's how the system works. You invest in beautiful, intelligent, ambitious women, position them in the right circles, and eventually they connect with even wealthier men. It's strategic social engineering disguised as patronage. And Meghan was apparently a very good investment. Because she didn't just connect with a wealthy man, she connected with a prince. The ultimate prize in the social climbing game that the yacht circuit represents. Now, let's talk about what happened to this financial trail after Meghan started dating Harry. Because this is where the cleanup operation becomes obvious. Suddenly, all the sponsored travel stopped. All the comped memberships ended. All the corporate account funding dried up. Not gradually, not naturally, immediately and completely, as if someone had flipped a switch.
Why?
Because once Meghan was dating Harry, continuing to fund her through these channels would create a paper trail that could be discovered. It would raise questions about who had been investing in her and why. It would expose the entire network that had positioned her to meet a prince in the first place. So the funding was cut off, forcing Harry to start supporting her lifestyle, which he did, apparently without ever asking questions about how she'd afforded her previous lifestyle or why it suddenly required his financial support. Let me ask you, if you were dating someone who'd been living an expensive lifestyle and suddenly they needed you to start paying for everything, wouldn't you ask how they'd been funding themselves before? Wouldn't you wonder where the money had been coming from? Comment below. Because we're about to examine the most disturbing aspect of this entire story, the network that positioned Meghan to meet Harry, and why Colin Jost's exposure threatens to reveal a system that goes far beyond just one woman. When we come back, we're looking at the bigger picture. The yacht circuit as a pipeline for social climbing. The network of middlemen who facilitate these connections. And why Meghan's success story is actually the nightmare scenario for everyone involved in this world. Stay with us for the conclusion. Colin Jost's comment didn't just expose Meghan. It exposed an entire system. A network that's been operating quietly in the shadows of the ultra-wealthy world for decades, connecting beautiful women with powerful men in ways that benefit the middlemen who facilitate these connections. And now that the silence has been broken, now that a mainstream figure has made it acceptable to discuss this network publicly, people who've operated within it are starting to talk more freely. Can you imagine being one of the facilitators in this network right now? You've spent years carefully constructing a reputation as a social connector, an event planner, a matchmaker for the elite. You've built relationships with billionaires who value your discretion and your ability to provide the right atmosphere for their parties. And suddenly, Colin Jost makes a comment on a podcast that threatens to expose the entire operation. Suddenly, people are asking questions about how this world actually works. Suddenly, the protective silence that's kept everything operating smoothly is cracking. Sources say Marcus Anderson and others in similar positions are genuinely panicked. Because once people start examining how women like Meghan ended up in proximity to princes and billionaires, once the financial trails get traced, once former yacht crew members start giving detailed testimony, the entire system collapses. Let me explain how this network actually operates, based on testimony from multiple sources who've worked within it. Level 1. Recruitment. Middlemen like Marcus Anderson identify beautiful, intelligent, ambitious women who are struggling to break through in entertainment, modeling, or similar fields. Women who have the look, the charm, and the willingness to trade on those assets for access and opportunity. Level 2. Investment. These women receive financial support, comped memberships, travel assistance, wardrobe budgets, all disguised as legitimate business expenses or corporate hospitality.